quarterback ball and have a chance.
Game on the line. King, he's going to step up. Pumps, runs, goal line. Is he in? Yes! Carolina wins! James King. King of the night.
For a first football game of the season, the first of preseason, that was pretty entertaining. God, the NFL even delivers in early August. Good morning, everybody. Stefon Diggs is at practice. He is signed. He is wearing practice jersey number 18. I was interested, and we didn't talk about this yesterday, Max, what jersey number he would be wearing, because he's worn 14 in the NFL, both in Minnesota and in Buffalo. He wore number 1, his college number, in Houston. He wore number 8 last year in New England. He wore 7 in high school, and 7's a protected number. Until Joe is still out there, and Joe's jersey is still out there to be retired at some point down the road. I think Charlie Taylor's 42 is the last of the absolutes that have to be retired. So after Riggo's gets retired this coming season, I think Charlie Taylor should be next year. And then it gets very, very debatable on that next group of players. But Joe's in that next group. And Snyder made, just typical of Snyder, just cowardly to give Dwayne Haskins, God rest his soul, Joe's number when he had not played it down in the NFL. That was a protected number. And remember what Dan did? He said, well, it's up to Joe. No, actually, Dan, it was up to you to absolutely shut the door on it immediately. No, our first ever Super Bowl winning quarterback, a league MVP, a protected jersey, that's not getting handed over to someone who hasn't played in the NFL. But he did it anyway. But 7 should be protected. And by the way, not surprising that a guy like Diggs would probably recognize that, or ownership would recognize it and say, no, 7's protected. 18 was what he was wearing at practice. Wow. Stefon Diggs is in the fold officially. It's good news. This from Jess. Jess writes, Kevin, you listed the duos in the NFL at wide receiver. I think your caller a few weeks ago is right. Diggs Terry is a top 5 wide receiver duo in the NFL. No, they're not. Come on, people. Come on. Let's try to be a little bit objective here. There are 7 to 8 wide receiver duos that I ripped off. What did I rip off? 8 or 9 yesterday? The two of us did that?
Yeah, we did a solid 8 that were definitely better.
Yeah, so that list was obviously Chase T. Higgins. That's number 1. That's the clear-cut number 1 duo in the NFL. I would put what? Are you going to say Lamb Pickens or Nakua Devontae Adams?
You could make an argument for sure.
I don't think okay, it's subjective, but honestly, you've got arguably the best receiver in the NFL with another receiver that would be a clear-cut number 1 for at least half the teams in the league.
I can say the same thing about George Pickens with T. Higgins.
But neither one of those two players, Lamb or Pickens, is anywhere near Jamar Chase, in my opinion. They're in the net. Lamb's that next category down. He's not in the Chase Jefferson category. Okay, so anyway, we both agree that both of those teams have better duos. Nakua and Adams are clearly a better duo. I'll tell you what, I'd actually put Nakua Adams too behind Chase and Higgins, because I think Nakua is better than either Lamb or Pickens, personally.
Ooh.
Then you've got Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Addison has a chance to be really, really good if he can just stay out of trouble. You've got Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams. You've got Jalen Waddle added to Cortland Sutton. You've got A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs in New England now. You have JSN and Rashid Shaheed. What were the others that we threw out? We threw out Metcalf and Pittman, right?
Yeah, we did throw that one out there. Romo Dunze, Luther Burden, if you want to get that one out there.
Yeah. I mean, Adunze's always hurt.
It's true.
I don't even know how good Adunze is, to be honest with you. So I would not put that pairing over Terry and Diggs. I'd consider Pearson Downs in Indy. I think Josh Downs is very underrated as a receiver.
I think we've kind of found the sweet spot here. The eight
That's
spot.
That's 8. So they're in the conversation of 9, 10, 11, somewhere in there. Are we forgetting some? I don't think we are.
JSN Shaheed, that's about it, really, for guys on like that level.
Yeah.
Because JSN's best in the league right now.
Yeah. So I think that I'm excited about the move. I think I made that very clear yesterday. I think it's a really smart move. I think the contract is really solid for the team. I think the fit of him coming off the season he's coming off of, not being asked to be, the number one, although it's very possible he could get targeted more than anybody else. We'll see about that. But he's a clear-cut number 2 or 1A on a team that desperately needed it. I talked about this yesterday to a certain degree, but this is where I really think the importance lies for those in Ashburn. They're not only getting a player that last year proved that he can still be a number 1 in the league on a contending team, worst case, a number 2. What they're getting is a known entity entering a season where you got to have some success and you've got to be ready early. Burks is an unknown. De'Ami Brown is an unknown in terms of their ability to become a number 2. And when I say a number 2, somebody that's going to catch 70 balls a year. They've never done that. Burks has never done that. De'Ami's never done that. Luke McCaffrey's never done that. Jalen Lane's obviously never done that. Antonio Williams obviously has never done that. Van Jefferson's never done that. And they were a bunch of maybes heading into this season. Maybe Treylon Burks shows off why he was a first-round pick and becomes a true number 2 at the very least, capable of catching 75 balls, 70 balls a year as a number 2. Maybe 80, 85 is a number 1, 90 is a number 1. But that's a maybe. Everything else, a maybe. You know what Stefon Diggs isn't? He's not a maybe. Sure, there's a chance that at 32 years old he falls off a cliff, but more likely than not, he won't. And so I mentioned that the exhale is that, okay, it may not be specifically what we were looking for. We really wanted a vertical speed threat. But we're going to go into Philadelphia on Sunday afternoon, September 13th for the opener with 2 dudes at wide receiver who have done it, who have caught 85, 90, 100, 110 balls. In the case of Diggs, many 100-yard seasons, 5 of them. Terry's never had a 90-catch-plus season. Diggs has had 5 100-plus catch seasons. Yes, Stefon Diggs has played with much better quarterbacks, of course. Also, yes, Stefon Diggs at his best was better than Terry at his best. That's just a fact. The exhale is we're going into Philly week 1 and into Dallas week 2, and we got 2 dudes at wide receiver. We have 2 knowns at wide receiver. We are not going to be putting out on the field front line maybes. By the way, Chigakonkwo is a maybe. Most catches he's ever had was last year, 56. He hasn't played in big games. He hasn't been in big spots before, being in Tennessee the last 4 years. Adding Diggs is not a maybe. It's a known. And the team's going to walk in to really 2 snake pits in weeks 1 and 2. And then welcome the Super Bowl champions to Landover in week 3. And they're buttoned up at wide receiver. They've got a supporting cast for their quarterback on offense that looks completely different than it did a few days ago, because you can be sure of the 2 wide receiver spots. Fingers crossed everybody makes it to the regular season healthy. I like the number 18 on Diggs. Who's the last number 18? I think it was Josh Doxson. I think it was Josh Doxson wore 18. Real quickly about the NFL game last night, the Hall of Fame game last night. Okay, just so I know that it was the second highest scoring Hall of Fame game of all time. 63 points. Do you know what the total in the game was last night, Max?
I do. I think. You want
35.
Me to say it? I was going to say 34 and a half, but yes.
Yeah, it was 34 and a half, 35, 35 and a half, depending on where you played it. I did not play it. I have friends of mine that swear that preseason football is the best opportunity in football. I haven't bet a preseason game or total in a long, long time. I think I've been perhaps in Vegas during a late August weekend where, for the hell of it, probably spread some action around on some preseason games on a Friday or Saturday night. But no, it's been a long time. The game sailed over the total. 33-30 on Haynes King's touchdown run, as Dave Canales decided, well, we're not going to kick a field goal down 30-27 to go to OT. Coaches hate overtime in the preseason. So from the 8-yard line, he decided to go for the win. And remember yesterday, we described the Case Keenum Minneapolis Miracle as the play that changed the rule on walk-off touchdowns, not needing PATs unless the PATs were meaningful. Well, that happened last night. Walk-off touchdown, they're up 3, no need for the PAT. That was it. Final score, Panthers 33, Cardinals 30. My buddy Nick texts me early in the game. He's like, your boy Beck looks great. Yes, he does. He did look great last night against a lot of dudes that probably won't be in the NFL in a month with no game planning. But I liked Carson Beck was one of my favorite players last year in college football. And I was really rooting for him last year because I thought he got kind of a raw deal at Georgia. He got injured. They moved on from him. And he was a big part of why Miami got to the national championship game last year. There's something about watching Beck going back to Georgia. And I know not everybody's a fan of Beck. A lot of college football fans were like, he's stiff. He throws too many picks. He's too laid back. There's something about his 6'4" methodical, just he sees it. He's never, ever flustered by anything. He's a big dude who can make every throw, and he's just always looked like an NFL quarterback to me. And he looked like one last night, albeit in a preseason game. By the way, in the game last night, this was a preseason game. You know, the preseason games typically, the reason the total was 34.5 or 35 is because preseason games are usually, 16-10, 14-9, maybe 24-7. I mean, this thing was 17-17 at halftime, went back and forth. In the game, there were a combined 803 yards of offense in a preseason game. 803 yards of offense in a 33-30 preseason game. Third downs last night, combined both teams, 16 of 26. Pretty crazy to have that. Not that many penalties, not that many turnovers. Haynes King was something else at Georgia Tech, man. He really was. He was a clutch quarterback, and he's a big dude. He is a dual threat. Okay, that's the way he will play in the NFL, as a dual threat. I actually see a little bit more quarterback than Taysom Hill, but I see him potentially being used at times like Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill's done in New Orleans, by the way. Is his career over, or did anybody pick him up?
I believe I saw that little farewell he put out. Somebody asked Sean Payton if he was going to consider bringing him in. I think he gave an answer to that question that implied that he would give Taysom Hill a look.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
There you go. Preseason is underway. No more games this weekend. They'll all get underway next week. I'm assuming Thursday night we'll get the first full slate of games. And then Washington's first preseason game is a week from tonight at home against the Dolphins. And they'll scrimmage and practice with the Dolphins next week. If you're wondering, Washington's a 1.5 point favorite and the total is 36.5 next Friday night. I am interested, and I know that the question has been asked, and Ben will jump on with us at 12. I am interested to see how Dan Quinn decides to approach a preseason in which he's got a lot of new players, especially on defense, and 2 new coordinators. Will the starters be out there with the 2 new coordinators for a longer period of time than what we've seen in the first 2 preseasons under Dan Quinn? I have no idea. But we'll find out, I would assume, mid to late next week. All right. There are sound bites to play from this morning's practice. They're out there right now. We'll get to that during the show. And we'll get to several other things with Ben in addition to training camp, first day for Diggs, etc., because there is an Anthony Davis Wizards conversation to be had. Anyway, good Friday to all of you. Strap in. We got another 2 hours and 45 minutes of show left. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
First things first, we're definitely fired up to welcome Stefon Diggs to the team, and he's a tremendous player. We know that, but what I've heard more and more this week is about what kind of leader he's been to the younger players and on teams that he's been a part of, and the energy he brings not just to the field but also to the sideline. So our plan will be to work him in slowly as we're going through today, tomorrow, into the next block. But man, are we happy to bring him back home and have him as part of our Commander family. We're also pumped today as a military day. And so what a cool honor to have so many servicemen and women here. And then lastly, on some good news front, you'll see some familiar faces back on the field today, working back in at some level, and that'll be Trey Amos, Tress Way, and Dorrance Armstrong. So all that said, let's get rocking with you guys and get going. Hey,
After that, there were about 15 or 16 questions asked of Dan Quinn today. Every single one of them was about Stefon Diggs. I'm sorry, with the exception of one. There was an offensive line depth question. Can't wait to hear
Important
who asked
question.
that one. I'm sure it was a very good question. But you're going to hear a lot of what Dan Quinn said about Stefon Diggs coming up here in a moment. That was good news to hear that Dorrance Armstrong, Trey Amos, Tressway all back. Dorrance Armstrong coming back is a big deal. I think that some of the players that were on the team last year that got hurt have been overshadowed by all of the new players. Washington's added so many new defensive players that guys like Dorrance Armstrong, Dietrich Wise, two players who were missed significantly last year. Wise early in the season went down, and then Armstrong down in week 7, and he was their best defensive player last year when he went down. Would it have made a difference in the season? No. But coming back, being added to all these new players, just remember, Dorrance Armstrong is going to play a lot, and he's going to be a factor if he's healthy coming off that knee injury. Johnny Newton, kind of forget even about Daron Payne and Javon Kinlaw because just so much talk about Owe and Chenal and Styles and Chason, and Cross and O'Menahue and now Douglas, and Settle. Who am I forgetting? But there are still some players that are good players that were just part of a completely discombobulated and very injured defense last year. Will Harris is a player they think is super smart and can really play. Sanders still coming back year 3. Does it look more like year 1? Quan Martin, man, we've been around the block with Quan Martin. He's really good, says everybody. And at times you can see it, and at other times you can't. Jeremy Reeves going to be hard to keep him off the field. Jordan McGee, Frankie Louvu. Yeah, good that Dorrance Armstrong is back. I think, that first, as I've said, that first, third, and obvious passing situation in Philly on the 13th, it's going to be really interesting to find out then, and that's when we will likely find out who they really like as pass rushers. It would not shock me if the two edge rushers are Owe and Armstrong, but it could be Owe and Louvu. It could be Owe and Chason. Could be any number of combinations. Who's going to move inside on passing downs? Is Payne still in the game? Is Kinlaw still in the game? Or is it Johnny Newton? Or does somebody move inside that you're not expecting? A Dorrance Armstrong, as an example. Going to be interesting to see how the, pieces, I guess we can call them chess pieces, get moved around defensively. That's going to be a mystery that won't be answered, trust me, no matter what they say, until opening day. All right. So, Diggs has not talked yet. Is Diggs scheduled to talk after practice?
There hasn't been a schedule that I've seen just yet. So we'll see if he does, I'll be jumping on it like white on rice, but nothing yet.
Keep an eye on that, because if it happens, maybe we can carry some of that live if we can. If they air it on their YouTube channel. All right, so let's talk about Quinn's answers to basically every single question with the exception of one on the acquisition of Stefon Diggs. This was Dan Quinn on what Diggs brings to the offense.
Hey, Dan, with Stefon, what does he bring to this offense? And when you're watching film, what does he still does at a higher level?
Yeah, I think when you see him work inside, John, inside as a slot player, he's got great feel. He's a great competitor. But those are a few of the things, that jump out to us. He's somebody certainly that can move the chains, and like how important that is to have somebody that has the detail of option routes and, specifics, but specifically inside, man, is he an effective player in that way?
Yeah. So, that was a bit of a tell. I think in the Blau offense, there was a good possibility that before the acquisition of Diggs, depending on the readiness of Antonio Williams and others, we would see Terry a lot in the slot. Again, I've mentioned this before. Terry being and working from the slot is not a new thing in his career. Scott Turner did it a bunch with Terry McLaurin, getting him in matchups that were favorable for the offense. But Diggs inside at this point with, great feel, as Quinn said, great competitor. Also add to that, great hands. He catches everything and he moves the chains. He will be a real chain mover on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, working in the middle of the field versus zone or man. Going to be so interesting to watch that. All right, this was Dan Quinn on the plan for Diggs over the next couple of practices.
With Stefon, what is sort of the plan for him today, the next couple of days as you
Yep.
kind of integrate?
And so yesterday got a chance to meet and visit with him some. So we'll start working him in slowly. And as we get more accustomed, like honestly, playbook-wise, scheme to go. So he's in fantastic shape. So really just today and tomorrow, kind of start building up and some of the reps that he's comfortable with. And then we'll start adding from there.
Good nugget there. He's in fantastic shape. He's had quite the off season, battling in court, the felony strangulation charge, the misdemeanor assault charge. His freedom was at stake during that trial. But good to hear that he is in great shape. This was Quinn with more on what Diggs will bring to the offense.
Is adding a player like that do for the offense, especially obviously the past game?
Yeah, and you've heard us say that, like Adam has said, and I have too, that we're pleased with the receiver group as a whole. And so to add another player into it, you want to talk about competitive nature and where to go. Like Steph's at the very, high list of competitors. And so to add somebody like that to the group, that's a really big deal for us. So I'm really excited to work with him. Pretty rare you get to coach two brothers, so I got a cool text from little brother last night about the impact he's had and the amazing leader that his older brother has been and, pushed him into things. So, yeah, I think that's you don't get to do that very often. And so I'm very much looking forward to, getting a chance to coach Steph and build that relationship with him.
He's talking about Trayvon Diggs, the corner who played for Quinn in Dallas. A lot of people have, considered Stefon Diggs and his younger brother, Trayvon Diggs, to be some sort of package deal. That was never necessarily, I don't think, a part of it. But again, there's a theme here. And this is a theme when anybody talks about Stefon Diggs. Bob Malloy, yesterday, his longtime coach at Good Counsel, said, competitor, just loves football, loves to compete, hates to lose. You've already heard it a couple of times from Quinn. You're getting an alpha, on offense. Terry is an alpha. I'm not saying he isn't, but you're going to have a couple of them out there. This was Quinn being asked about whether or not there will be some sort of pitch count for Diggs. Last year, the snap count was relatively or comparatively low to number one receivers in the league, but a lot of that had to do with him coming off the 2024 ACL injury in Houston. But Quinn was asked about Diggs and a pitch count this year.
Last year, when Steph was coming off an injury, New England had him play about 55% of the snaps. Do you anticipate him being on any kind of pitch count this year?
We haven't gone through that far yet. to see packages, what we play, how we feature it. So we haven't, dug down into that yet. I just know he's in great shape, and we're ready to start building him in. But as far as how much and where, we haven't gone down that road yet.
Another reference to him being in great shape. This was Quinn on why it was so important to find another wide receiver.
I know you kind of just touched on it, but with Stefon, as you guys have talked a lot, you really like the guys in the room. Why did you find it important to go out, spend the money, and get another guy?
Yeah, I think that's the nature of competing, right? To say, okay, what ways can we help the team get better? And that's always at the forefront of Adam and his thinking, and at receiver or at any position. So we like the competitive makeup of the group, and so this just made a lot of sense, for us to add Steph here. And like I said, we're really pumped to get started with him. But I was excited to hear more and more, about him, about, the teammate, the leader. And so I think those things are cool too.
Yeah, we had somebody on from WEEI in Boston yesterday, and it's the second or third time I've heard it that the team really liked Stefon Diggs in New England last year. And he is, a guy that is going to be, let's just say it's not hard to get him to open up, to tell you how he really feels. There's no sugarcoating it with him. But in that first year, in that first maybe 2 years, Stefon Diggs, everybody understands, is a badass on game days, and he loves football and football season. So you got somebody that you're adding to the room. Like I said earlier in the show, this is a known. Everything else was a maybe. Treylon Burks is a maybe. De'Ami Brown, even though we know what he is, but in terms of rising up to being to actually filling a number 2 spot, maybe. Jalen Lane, Luke McCaffrey, Antonio Williams, Van Jefferson, maybes. Stefon Diggs isn't a maybe. This was Quinn on vetting all of the other stuff, the off-field stuff that Stefon Diggs typically, has sort of hanging off his overall resume. This was Quinn on that.
DQ, with Steph, I know this offseason he had some off-the-field issues, and I know that anytime that kind of stuff happens, it's always a question of if the league office may have any suspensions or things of that nature. I know character is important to you guys. What went into vetting that side of things before bringing them in, and what made you guys so confident that it wouldn't be an issue?
For Steph or any of the guys, we've got a really good process, that we go through, and when we bring players in. And so we were certainly comfortable, with that process, and we're excited to have them.
So not much of an answer there. Quinn's, I'm sure, not the guy, spearheading the vetting process when it comes to the adding of a player to the roster. That is a front office responsibility. Of course, Quinn, I'm sure, can make a lot of calls on behalf. Look, the trial that he went through, he was found not guilty on all counts. Then the league had to weigh in on whether or not there would be anything associated with conduct detrimental. They weighed in and said no suspension, no punishment whatsoever, and that cleared the way. If I didn't say this yesterday, because I don't think I did, and I think it was something that made this whole thing come together. Once Ayuk was essentially off the board, when he left the reservation 2 months ago and became kind of off the board, that made it so much easier for not only the team to think about Diggs, but for Diggs to think about the team. Because Stefon Diggs, at 32 years old, wasn't going to sign with a team that, I say that, I don't know that for sure, but I'm sure he didn't want to be a number 3. So if there was a chance that Ayuk was going to be added to the roster, Diggs perhaps would have looked elsewhere. This was, what was next? This was Quinn talking about just Diggs, his connection with the players already. This was Dan Quinn on that.
Dan, you've mentioned the leadership aspect of it multiple times. What in particular have you learned about him that makes that kind of a bright spot?
Yeah, I think just like early connections with people. There was definitely a buzz about it, but he had more connections here than even I thought. Like obviously being here, but I'm talking about player-wise, who's on the team, and so that's not that normal, where like this guy, when you haven't played with them before. So people speak to like, the work ethic, the practice ethic. And so those are some of the things I'm like very much looking forward to seeing. Like those are things, that's who you are. It's not something that doesn't travel. And so we're excited to add that type of competitor to our group.
I'm trying to think of the players that he's played with. Obviously, he played with Tunsil in Houston in 24 before he got hurt, right? He knows the Maryland guys that were at it, I'm sure, even though they're not from the same class. I would imagine that he knows Chig and knows Nick Cross, and probably works out at some point during the course of the year when he's home with some of those guys. Who else has he played with?
Caleb Chason,
obviously from New England last year. Yes. Yeah. So that would be.
He's already been working out like in with privately. He was working out with a receiver coach up here. I remember Van Jefferson was also spotted at that workout along with Trey Burks. So there are a lot of receivers have already gotten a chance to work with him too.
This was Quinn on whether or not something needs to be said to the other wide receivers, to the wide receiver room when you add a guy like Diggs.
Hey, Dan, what, if any, conversations do you have with the rest of the wide receiver room when you bring in a player of Steph's caliber?
We don't have any in that way, like kind of the central theme of where we're at is competing. But it's a natural reaction. Like they're all human. That's the same process. JP, draft night, free agency, there, but like that's also the nature of what we do and how we do it. So they all know like what we're about and how we do things. So in some instances you want to say some things, other times you don't. But in this instance, there was no need to.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like how the receivers coach, the OC, the head coach. When you bring in a player that is a headline acquisition, do you have to sit down with everybody and say, hey, we're doing this. It isn't because we don't believe in all of you guys, but it is going to raise the level of competition in this room. And he's been a player that's done it in the past, but he's going to have to compete too. We're not handing him anything. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. But sometimes you don't have to say anything. These guys are pros. I mean, they know. This was Quinn on the addition of Diggs helping out the defense, especially the secondary.
Good morning again, Coach.
Good morning.
So bringing in a wide receiver like Stefon Diggs, and I know we focused a lot on the wide receiver room, but how does that also elevate the competitiveness in your defensive background?
Yes. I think you can find a feel like Mikey and Amik so far. Like that's obvious, like, over the time. And so to add another person to go battling for it, like I love seeing Luke and Mikey just like battling for it the other day in the red zone period. So to add another competitor into that spot, this is a really skilled receiver. He's got great route running ability. So when you practice against that, like you can't help but, improve your own game. So those are the give and takes that I like when we go good on good as often as we can. And as we build it together with Steph, like I'm excited to see, the insights that he can share across the ball. Like that's where teammates can really explore. Hey man, you're giving this away. This is something I see that was hard to defend. And so coaches do it, but when the players start doing it, that's when you can really elevate the team.
All right. And then Quinn was asked about his experience coaching against Diggs. Here's what he said.
Dan, obviously, you presume you coached against Stefon Diggs at some point. Do you recall any situations or games that stood out going against him?
Yeah, too many, unfortunately. But I think just like his suddenness inside, like that's when you're a slot, that's, hard to guard, and especially in like when you have to deny the ball, some of the third downs where you don't want space and you want to attach to somebody and play man to man. And hey man, we're going to try to deny him here. When you have quickness and you can, beat somebody when you're playing man to man, there's explosive plays after that. Oftentimes in zone, person can catch it, but you're going to see it. It might be a first down. with him man to man, you better be ready, because if he does beat you across your face or you lose leverage, like, this is going to be an explosive play. Not to say that every throw to him's short, but you better know how you're going to bracket him, where you're going to go. So those are significant game planning, procedures that you go through.
Dan Quinn, I'm sure in Seattle, when he was a D. No, it would have been in Atlanta against Minnesota. It would have been in Dallas against probably Buffalo. I mean, probably not a lot of, matchups against Diggs. But you heard him kind of talk, and this has been a bit of the theme too, that he's going to play a lot inside. Like, he is, he's inside, and he's a guy that can move the sticks against man coverage, against sticky man coverage. Hard to stick with him. Try not to give a guy like Diggs space. Quick feet, really good feel, obviously a lot of experience to shake. I saw a cut up that somebody put on Twitter yesterday of all of the third down conversions that he had last year in New England. And a lot of them were short third down throws. But man, he does get immediate separation even when the defensive back is trying to hover and trying to stick to him and playing real, up at the line of scrimmage man coverage against him. He's still got that ability. All right. Quinn was asked about whether or not Diggs will play in the preseason. You'll hear that answer coming up. There was a few more, including did the way Diggs play with May last year, Drake May, specifically factor into why he's in D.C. now. So a little bit more of Dan Quinn on Stefon Diggs when we return. All of our training camp coverage on the Team 980 presented by Xfinity. Score the most reliable Wi-Fi. One price, 5 years, guaranteed. Xfinity. Imagine that.
and this is a way too early question since he hasn't even practiced yet, but considering there's going to be a ramp-up period, does playing him in the preseason make more sense than it would be like if he was already had been here and maybe?
Yeah, we haven't hit on any of that yet. We'll kind of have some of those discussions going into the next block. So the team will rock it today, tomorrow, and then Sunday the players have off, and that's kind of where we'll start building, who would do what and where.
17 questions for Dan Quinn this morning at his pre-practice press conference, and 15 of them, not 16, 15 of them were about the new receiver, Stefon Diggs. You heard what he said about playing Diggs in the preseason when Ben asked him. We won't get those answers probably until late next week, I would imagine. How about, will they continue to look at the wide receiver market? Here's what Dan Quinn said.
Do you guys anticipate at this point right now just to be, you're good with your wide receiver room bringing in Steph, or is it something you still will survey and look and see if there's other help out there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say that's part of Adam's nature, like to see what's there, how does it go. But we like the group. We're like seeing where we're at. Adding Steph to it is a big deal. But I think as a competitor, like you don't ever, say, no, we're not done, we're not looking. So, but we are happy with the group. I think that's fair to say.
Then another question just for Quinn about adding Diggs.
Good morning, Coach.
Good morning.
With Steph in tow now, how do you feel? How does Jaden feel about the offense overall now?
Can you repeat the first part with Steph?
Yeah, with Steph in tow now on the team.
Oh, understood.
How do you feel about how do you and Jaden feel about the offense? Is it a different feeling?
Yeah, I can't speak for Jay, but I can speak for me. I love, some of the uniqueness that Steph has in his game as a slot player. When you have an accurate passer like we do with Jaden, the ability to deliver the ball to the right location against this specific coverage, that's a really big deal. And I like they have a connection already, prior to Steph coming in. They didn't meet each other today for the first time. So knowing that they'll put the work in over this month, that's a big deal. And I think for us, it's not impossible to do it, in first week of September. Sometimes that happens at the end of a camp, but to have Steph here now and to build with the team, that's definitely an advantage, as we're leading up into the season. So I'm certainly pleased as a coach that we get reps and time to build team chemistry, build the offense together, with him being a big part of it.
I wonder when they threw with one another. Do you think it was this summer, last summer, maybe before his rookie year? Who knows? But he was clear that this isn't the first time they've gotten together and thrown with each other. How about Quinn on the way Diggs played with Drake May last year? Did that factor into the acquisition of Stefon Diggs?
Coach, when you're evaluating Steph, looking back to last year, seeing what he did with Drake May, same class as Jaden, did that go into the process at all? If so, how much?
It did not. He's got a nice body of work of how he plays, and to see him healthy and, doing his thing last year, I thought it really showed, man, like elite level competitor, productive. So, but no, it did not factor in. He's always been somebody that, quarterback was friendly with because, the precision, the locations, how to get open. So yeah, this is a real significant guy for us.
And then, the last one about Diggs was, will it affect the playing time of some of their other players in that wide receiver room? You'll hear the question and Quinn's answer.
Dan, you mentioned Stefon and how you had to defend him before and mentioned the slot. What does his presence do in terms of reps, playing time, future for Antonio Williams, Luke, Jalen Lane, the guys you drafted who typically are playing inside?
Yeah. So we'll work through that over the next month, Ben, and he won't exclusively play just the slot. But that does, bring up the question of how we'd feature guys, 2 receivers, 3 receivers, who'd play in, what down and distances. So we'll work through that. That's why it is nice to have him here today and begin that process together. But it's also kind of like ramping up our competition in a group that I like, who they stand for. Like, I like what that feels like, to see where it plays out, so to speak. So as the competitor coach in me, like, it's good. And so those are good things that you want to figure out.
All right. That was pretty much all of Dan Quinn on Stefon Diggs. Look, if Antonio Williams or Luke McCaffrey or someone else was really, really, playing at a level where they felt confident, I shouldn't even say playing at a level because they haven't played anything yet this year, but if they were truly confident in anyone else's ability to step on the field in Philadelphia in week one and be confident that it would go well, you probably wouldn't have Diggs here. It doesn't mean that they don't feel like Luke McCaffrey or Antonio Williams, who's only a rookie, but he wasn't a first-round pick, and I think sometimes we get carried away with, well, Antonio Williams, just plug him in. He's the slot, but he's also versatile. He's going to be the number 2 targeted guy on the team. I heard that a few weeks ago from some of you. It may be the truth, but more likely that's a couple of years down the road, a year or two down the road. If they felt great about putting what they had in their room already, putting a portion of that out on the field to start the 2026 season, regular season, then Diggs wouldn't be here. Doesn't mean that they're not medium or long-term confident about what they have in their room, but short-term confident as in 2026, they needed something else. That's why they went and got him. All right, when we come back, where will the targets go on offense? How do we see this breaking down? Terry, Diggs, Okonkwo, the running backs. I'll give you my guess, and I want yours at 301-230-0980. Who becomes the most targeted receiver on offense? And maybe give me your top 3, all right, in order. Number 1, number 2, 3. So Terry, you think, is going to be the most targeted. He's my number 1. Then it's Chig at 2, and then it's Diggs at 3. Or maybe it's a running back like Rashad White or Krosky Merritt at 3. Most targeted, not necessarily leading the team or the top 3 in receptions. Although usually they go hand in hand in terms of targets and receptions. I'll give you my answer. I want yours as well at 301-230-0980. If Diggs ends up talking to the media, you'll hear it here on the Team 980. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. All right. Stefon Diggs actually right now is stepping to the podium to address the media for the first time as a Washington wide receiver. Let's jump in and hear what he has to say.
My family's here. My support system is here. You know, I love everything about home and the organization. You know, they take care of their players. Some good people over here. I had some existing relationships from guys that were in Houston, so some carryover there. They got a great young quarterback. You know what I'm saying? I'm familiar with young quarterbacks. He's a star. He's a superstar. I'm excited for him. I'm excited for this team. You know, it's on my first day out, FDL, first day out. So, you know, still getting to know everybody. And, you know, I'm a little late in the game. They started camp already, but I'm trying to get used to it and not speed up the process, just do it organically.
So what do you feel that you're going to
still?
What do you add here? And as you matured in your career,
Yeah.
where is it that you feel maybe you've improved?
As far as like skill set or more so just leadership, what are you at? I'm asking you. Oh, I mean, I've been around the game for a long time. I've been productive. You know, I kind of know my way around the field a little bit. So I come with like a little bit of experience, I would say. Then leadership, I know everybody's led differently. I'm new here, so just trying to earn my keep and earn the respect of my teammates, earn the respect of my coaches. Most importantly right now, learn the playbook. I'm a little late in the game, but I'm handling it the right way, be a professional, and I'm just excited to be at work. You know, had a little bit of a long off season.
How much did you know Terry at all before coming here?
Not too personal. I was, you know, fans of the game. You know, I've seen Scary Terry for a long time. He's a hell of a player, playmaker. You see him on the highlights. You see him pop up on the screen a lot on ESPN. But I admired I was very inspired, and I admired his game from the intensity standpoint and the passion that he plays with, real similar to myself. And we kind of talked about that a little bit when I got here. And I'm a fan of his game.
What was it like just this offseason, not really knowing where you're going to end up?
Yeah.
And how was that for you?
Well, I mean, it was new, but, you know, we had a little bit of an idea. You know, we kind of wanted to slow play it and do whatever made the most sense at this stage of my career. Everybody know what I want. I want to win, and I want to hold the trophy up. So what a better place to do it than back home. And, you know, got to work every day to try to get there. But here I am putting one foot in front of the other. You know, I just try to take it one day at a time and treat things organically. And gratitude eliminates entitlement, you know. So I come here grateful, I'm thankful, and I'm happy to be here.
Right here.
I got you. Thanks.
Welcome home, by the way.
Thank you so much.
You know, seeing how far this team went 2 years ago,
Yeah.
You know, game away from the Super Bowl. You were just in the Super Bowl last year. Do you feel like that's something that maybe you could be that missing link to help get this?
I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that. I'm gonna do the best that I can. You know, from my point of view of just being a receiver, being open, being a leader. You know, trying to lead by example and push the guys around me. My biggest thing is I always try to push the guys around me to the best version of themselves. We slowly kind of building that already. This day when we had a lot of conversations, more than I thought we would have. Guys coming up to me and me just throwing a little gem here and there. You know, I'm older. I've been around the game for a little while now, like I said earlier. But I'm graceful, and I'm just trying to give them everything that I got. And at the same time, more show than tell. You know, I can say a bunch of hoopla, but I'd rather just go out there and hoop and show you why I did what I did, or kind of just communicate through the actions.
And then also, just one more.
You good? They got to get y'all some better mics too. I can barely hear y'all.
Okay. So it's I'll speak up. So it's only been 1 day.
Yeah.
But impressions of some of the receivers you've been working with so far.
Yeah. I mean, they got talent. They got a lot of talent. Brown, you know, he's been to a couple teams, but this is his first team he was at. I see that he has a lot of potential. He's made some plays. Terry, obviously, Trey Burks, you know, he was in Tennessee. You know, he's been in the league for a little while too. So, and then you got the young guys. 14 can hoop a little bit. You know, young guys don't get a name in the beginning. Just call him by the number. But he can hoop a little bit. He got some game, and you know, hopefully I can be a piece in their process that can kind of build this team and lead this team in the right direction. Because at the end of the day, I just want to win, man. Winning is the main thing for me. We had a little bit of that last year, a lot of that last year, and I kind of want that to just carry over. And all I can bring is my experience and the things that I've done and my leadership. Sorry. Yes, ma'am. I owe her one, but my bad.
Hey, Steph.
How you
Welcome
doing?
back home.
Thank you so much.
Could you talk a little bit about not knowing where you were going to be at first, that process of getting ready for wherever you were going to be? What did that look like for you as far as getting ready?
I've been a professional my whole career. I never, whether I was figuring it out or not, my biggest thing is I woke up in the morning. I worked out 2-3 times a day, 2 times a day. I don't shy away from that process because it doesn't matter where I go. It's more so when you get there, are you ready? Is your body physically ready? Are you in a good space mentally? You know what I'm saying, that kind of thing. So I wasn't really too concerned about the where. It was just the when and how, those kind of things. But the where wasn't at the top of my mind. It was more so I wanted to be prepared. I wanted to be in a good headspace, and I wanted to be physically. Damn, if another bug is on me, I'm sorry. I wanted to be physically in the right spot, and so I could come in and be ready to do whatever they need me to do. Be in shape, being able to run around. We had a little humid day. That's one thing I don't miss about being home. It kind of reminded me of Houston a little humidity, but I just want to be in shape. That was the main thing for me. That was going to put me in the right mental space because that's how I get my confidence. The work that I put in, the grind that I put in, that's how you go in with the right mindset to be like this. Whatever it is, I'm ready to do it. So.
And in meeting your new teammates for the first time, what is it that you want? What is it? You fanning off those DBs?
Yeah, there we go.
What do you want your new teammates to know about you as a person, as a player?
Yeah.
For some that don't know you.
More so me just leading by example. Like at the end of the day, I'm a dog on the field. Like I love football. I love everything about it, and I just want to win. And I like being around guys that want to win. Like Terry is one of those guys that passionate. James is one of those guys that's passionate, want to win, and ballers. Like really ballers. Like I don't care what nobody say. I watched that game. I seen them play at a high level, and I like being around that energy. So my biggest thing is I don't really want to talk about it. You know what I'm saying? I've been many places. I've had a lot of teammates in the past. A lot of them speak highly of me for the most part. And I still maintain some relationships with those guys just off of the work that I put in, the kind of player I am. So I kind of want to remain that and keep that going here and continue to be that. Hey, if I see another bug, just continue that, keep that going and keep that good energy flowing and be a beacon of light. You know what I'm saying? I'm here to bring the positive energy and the dog mindset. Like I said, I want to show more than I tell. Like I talk to y'all a lot, but I ain't out there. It's just all ball.
You're listening to Stefon Diggs' first press conference. There's some bees flying around him, and that's what you're hearing him talk about, bugs. But this is his first press conference as a Washington Commander out in Ashburn.
Quarterback, trying to see it how he see it. Like I learned that a little bit throughout my past 5 years. See it how the quarterback sees it, not how you see it, because he got an O-line in front of him, he got running backs near him, he got a lot in his face, and he's a lot of stuff he's processing into play. So you want to be in the right spot at the right time, and I kind of just want to see it from a bird's eye view, the quarterback view, you know what I'm saying, and give him the confidence. Only way you get the ball in this league, you make plays for your quarterback. That's how you get him comfortable. That's how you get him in the right spot like this. I can trust this guy and being at the right spot and moving around. If you want the ball, you got to be able to move around. I mean, you can go play one spot, but, they cloud coverage and they double, and it makes it harder for it. And it's good being around other players that can ball. Like, it's going to be hard to double somebody in this offense. You got guys that can make plays and guys who can make plays out of the backfield. You got a mobile quarterback. So the biggest thing is for me, just my commitment to the game. I've been committed. I play outside. I play inside. I do a little bit of the backfield, if they let me. So we'll see.
I know you're a hometown guy.
Yes, ma'am.
In 2018, we talked with your high school coach after you made that huge record catch.
Which one?
The Minnesota Miracle.
Yeah, I'm just messing. It was a long time ago. I'm a little old now.
So Coach Malloy said then, Stefon Diggs proves you never give up.
Yes, ma'am.
I've talked to Coach, number one, since you signed.
Yeah.
Number two, obviously you answered some questions about this, but it's that vibe you're bringing. And number three, most importantly, what do you think it's going to be like to play in front of a hometown crowd?
It's a different level of pride. It's kind of like, I'm going to give you the honest answer. I used to come home when we used to play the Commanders / Redskins back in the day, and I always felt like I had something to prove, because that's my hometown team. Them and the Baltimore Ravens, I had I always play with a chip on my shoulder, but the chip got really big when I go home because that's your hometown team, and I kind of always felt like they passed up on me. They didn't give me a chance, and I was right in their backyard. So kind of coming full circle moment, it's like, look at God, look how things happen. God works in mysterious ways, and timing is everything. So here I am back home, and I carry that same chip, but I'm a part of the team now, and I got a lot of pride, and I try to put it to the side at times, but that chip is on the other side now. So, and my whole family was Commanders fans growing up. My dad's side of the family was Cowboys fans. So you can imagine the visit in that household on Thanksgiving. Hopefully we can get back to that one day. Yeah. Y'all hot in here? I'm gonna get some AC in here soon.
Welcome back home.
Thank you so much.
I spoke to some of your former teammates, and one of the biggest things they take away is how much you help younger quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Last year, obviously, I picked right behind Jaden. Why do you take on that role? How do you help them? Can you take us inside?
Inside the brain of mine, just communication, transparency. You know, I try not to go into things aggressive. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not this game. Like, this game is aggressive enough, and quarterbacks got a lot on their plate, so I kind of just bring it down a notch and talk to them in a way. Hey, how you doing? Talk to them in a way as if brother to brother. Like, it's football. We playing football, but at the same time, like, just tell me what you're thinking. Communicate. Open line of communication. Communication rule the nation. That's what I say. And with young quarterbacks, you know, they got a lot on their plate, so making plays for them give them confidence. You know what I'm saying? That put a battery in their back to feel like, man, I could do anything out here. Like, that's how I try to help them, just by playing well. You know what I'm saying? That's the biggest thing. All the chatter and this, it's good to have here and there. You know what I'm saying? People have a bad play, your next play, your best play, little reminders like that. But the biggest thing, bar none, go make plays for them. You make plays for them, that's how they look good. That's how they build confidence. That's how they become, you know, they already have the talent. Jaden has proved he's, in my opinion, a superstar. You know what I'm saying? Just carrying that on and continue their MVP type of time. That's what I think.
Speaking of chatter, a few weeks ago, you said that you'd be the best wide receiver 2 in the league.
Yeah.
You stand by that? Why'd you say it?
I would have said 1. I mean, that's just my personal feelings, but you know what I'm saying? I kind of take it with a grain of salt. I give people the benefit of the doubt. You know what I'm saying? If people kind of feel the way about that, like, in this profession, in this job, you gotta elude confidence. You know what I'm saying? I can't go into anything saying something else. Like, I said 2 on camera, but in my heart, you know, I'm gonna say 1. You know what I'm saying? But humbly, I like to give people you know, the benefit of the doubt. You know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying? People have favorite players, but my numbers have always spoke for themselves. No matter who you like or what you say, the production has been there. If you put my production versus any production, you know what I'm saying? I think I was the number 14th receiver last year, and I was playing 52% of the snaps. You know what I'm saying? Numbers wise, I mean, I'm not no mathematician, but you know what I'm saying? I try to leave that right there. But I say that humbly. I say that from the space of I've worked extremely hard. I've always been productive. It's easy to say, well, it's this guy's better and that guy better. Well, it's personal opinion. What were they grading? What was the numbers? You know what I'm saying? Everything is situational. I went into a situation all coming off of ACL. You know what I'm saying? Coming off of ACL with a team that went, I don't know what the record was. You know what I'm saying? So to have that success and coming off of ACL, not a lot of people bounce back. Not a lot of people have success coming off of ACL that fast. So I'm speaking with confidence just off the work that I put in. And I say that humbly. I don't want to rub anybody the wrong way or be abrasive in any way, but I say that from confidence and the amount of work I put in and the success I had last year, being around the right group of guys and playing well. And, you know, that's not easy. You know what I'm saying? People might act like it's easy, but if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So forgive me if I rubbed anybody the wrong way.
Good to see you again, Stefon.
What's up, big guy? Hey, we can kind of talk now.
I know. I got a good one for
Sidebar. He met me the other day, and I was a little scared of him. I didn't really know him that well. Do you know this guy? Y'all familiar? He's all right. He's all right. Okay, all right. We good.
Thank you, guys. Stefon, I want to take you way back with this one.
Yeah.
Thinking back to the days of the Montgomery Village Chiefs.
Yeah.
Like, if that kid knew that he'd be wearing burgundy and gold now, I'm just curious how he would feel at this moment.
I got a little chills just now. I played for a couple of teams, actually. The Alexandria Raiders or Titans. You knew that? And I played for White Oak, and I played for MV. So I had a couple of teams. I want to show them all some love. So I don't know, man. I can't write a better story, you know, at this point in my career and what I want to do and being able to be healthy and coming off of ACL, having success and going to your hometown team and want to shine for them. And, you know, I want to put on for my city. I'm always going to want to do that. You know what I'm saying? I did it when I was away, and I want to do it when I'm home. So it definitely means a lot to me. You know what I'm saying? Pull on your heartstrings a little bit, but you know, I know the city behind me. I know I got a support system here, and I know I got a lot of love here. So all I want to do is make people proud. You know what I'm saying? Make the city proud. And the best way you can do that is go far. You know what I'm saying? I don't know where. I'm not going to say where. You don't want to jinx it or nothing, but I want to go far, and I want to be consistent and be a puzzle piece to this team in a positive way. Thank y'all. Have a good one, all right?
Stefon Diggs, not a bad introductory press conference. He handled himself very well. He's got a sense of humor, obviously, and he is happy to be home other than the bugs and the humidity. By the way, he talked about how he always had a chip on his shoulder when he came back to play in Washington. In his second season with the Vikings, they came and played in Washington in November of 2016. I looked it up. It's one of the best games of his career. He had 13 catches for 164 yards in that game. In fact, you cannot find another game with more combined receptions and yards. You know, the highest number of receptions, 13, is a career high. He did it more than once. 164 isn't a career high, but in terms of receptions and yardage in a game, that's and is one of the best games of his career. Washington won that game 26-20. It was a Cousins touchdown pass to, I think, like Maurice Harris, maybe. Was that the guy who caught a touchdown in that game? Or maybe down to the 1 yard line or something. I forget what it was. But Stefon Diggs played Washington several times in Minnesota and in Buffalo. It's good to have him here. Look, I mean, we had his high school coach, Bob Malloy, on the show yesterday, and he said, look, there's not a better competitor, and he loved coaching him. And he started both ways as a ninth grader at Good Counsel. Good to have somebody like Steph Diggs in the fold right now. I feel good about Steph Diggs being in the mix here for this team and for this quarterback. I think it's going to work. All right. I wanted to read something. It came from Will. Will in Bethesda wrote me. He wrote, Kevin, the fan base is starved and willing to eat almost anything. You were less over the top than some others on Diggs, but still, you saying if he has another year like last year, it would be a great year is loud, wrong, and crazy. You would crush Terry if he had a year like Diggs did last year. Will, that's just a setup to be hammered at, man, because Terry's only had 1 year like Diggs had last year. First of all, in terms of receptions, I'll get to that in a moment. I do think there is an element, and I hate to bring this guy up because many of you aren't necessarily fond of him, but a regular caller, his name is Ian, said that, people are essentially doing backflips over a guy who's at the end of his career, and there's no guarantee that they're going to get the performance out of him that, perhaps we think. There is a portion right now of all of us. In fact, I think we've all got a little bit of it in that we are starved for more support offensively for Jaden Daniels. I think that part of Will's email is true. Willing to eat anything is not true, because even before Ayuk left the reservation 2 months ago, I would say the fan base was split on him, and that's before the video series that he put out on social media. I was all in on Brandon Ayuk before, obviously, the big reveal that he's not necessarily all there through that video series, and then quickly jumped off it. But before, that series came out, we were debating very, very much on Brandon Ayuk. A lot of you didn't think he was that great and didn't need to be signed here. So I don't think that the fan base has been willing to eat anything. On Diggs, let me be clear. I'm really excited about it. Will, you saying I was less over the top than some others? I'm kind of over the top on Diggs. I mean, I recognize that there's, a possibility at 32 years old that his, best days or even last year's days could be behind him. But I'm really pumped that they added a player of his quality, of his competitiveness to this team. I think that he's going to become a big-time favorite for Jaden Daniels, like he was for Drake May last year. And look, to suggest, no offense, but you're just dead wrong in this, to take issue with me saying that if Diggs has another year like last year, that would be a great thing. I think maybe I said something to that effect, which is what you're responding to say that I was loud, wrong, and crazy about that, and that I would crush Terry if he had a year like Diggs had last year. Terry's only had 1 year reception-wise that exceeds what Diggs had last year. Diggs had 85 catches last year, Will, for 1,013 yards with a 55% snap count. Terry's 7 years in the NFL, he's caught 85 or more balls exactly one time Once. Year 2, he caught 87. His 1,013 yards, I mean, it's not the greatest year of his career by a long shot, but Terry's average season reception yardage in the NFL is 994 yards. What are you talking about? Did you think that Diggs had a different season? Maybe you were looking at the Houston numbers when he only played 8 games and had 47 catches. By the way, on pace that year, 8 games for 100 catches 2 years ago. By the way, and Warren Sharp mentioned this to us yesterday, Diggs's catch rate last year, which is a percentage of catches to targets, was 83%. That was number 1 in the NFL. Terry's a really good receiver. He's never been what Diggs has been at times. Terry's best catch rate, different quarterbacks understood. Diggs got to play with Cousins. He got to play with Josh Allen. And last year got to play with Drake May. Terry's had just one season of a catch rate over 70%. And by the way, it was 70.1%. Diggs, 83% last year, number 1 in the league. If Terry has a season like Diggs did last year, I'll be thrilled for him. It would be one of the top 3 seasons of his career if he has a season like Diggs had last year, reception-wise. And I would certainly take 85 catches and over 1,000 yards from Diggs and a catch rate of 83%. I'd be thrilled for either one of them to generate that in this offense next year. So this conversation, thank you, Will. You kind of stepped in it. I have a feeling you were looking at the Diggs numbers from Houston and were, unaware or perhaps just pulled the wrong season. Diggs had 85 catches and over 1,000 yards last year on a 55% snap count. He had a very good year last year. He had a year that you'd love any of our receivers to have again this year. But it does make me think about, like, with Diggs in the fold, with Terry in the fold, with Chig, who is a receiver for all intents and purposes, even though he'll have TE next to his name, with a running back like Rashad White, who can catch balls out of the backfield, or even Krosky Merritt, who by all accounts looks more comfortable catching the football out of the backfield. How will the targets spread out? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. I'll give you my answer, but obviously Terry McLaurin, Stefon Diggs, and Chig Okonkwo, along with more likely than not one of the running backs, they'll be the 4 players in the mix for the top 3 targets in this offense. Almost in any offense, that's kind of the way it would go. Maybe a third receiver would be involved. Certainly, that's a possibility. But I would say that in order, it's going to come from Terry, Diggs, Okonkwo, and one of the backs. I'll give you my order in terms of how I see the targets being spread out among the receiver pass-catching group, and I want your guess as well at 301-230-0980. Don't forget, you can watch this show on the Team 980's YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and hit the like button when you get there. Diggs is in the fold. He just spoke a little bit earlier after practice today. So, he's going to be on the field a lot. Terry McLaurin's going to be on the field a lot. That Chigakonkwo is going to be on the field a lot. I think the running back room is going to be interesting. I think that Rashad White's going to get a lot of the snaps. I think in a sort of a best case for Bill early in the season, they'll be shared, but that is subject to change. The question is, how do you see the ball being spread around? Who's going to lead the team in targets? Who's going to be second in targets? Who's going to be third in targets? I'm going to give you my top 4 in order. I think that, Terry and Diggs and Chig are all going to be targeted around the same number. Like, I could easily see all 3 of them getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 targets for the season. 300 between the 3 of them out of, say, 500 or so for the year. That's normal, especially for a team that I think is going to try to run the football and hopefully will run the football successfully. I think those 3 are going to have a similar number at the end of the season. Obviously, this assumes health. And it's going to be, plus or minus 10 from 100. But I'll say Terry's still the number 1 targeted receiver, pass catcher. I'll say that Diggs is 2 and Okonkwo is 3. It's going to be something like 103, 95, and 90, something like that in terms of targets. And then the running back will be 4th because they're going to throw to the running back, just like Detroit did. Ben Johnson did with Jahmyr Gibbs, who got paid yesterday. Big time. Highest paid running back in the history of the game. Man, all of a sudden, last year, one running back in the history of the game, Saquon Barkley, at $20+ million per year. And in the last week, Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, and Jahmyr Gibbs, all well over $20 million. It's actually a deal when you consider how many passes guys like Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs catch, because they're still way under the market in terms of receivers. But I think you're going to see a Rashad White catch a bunch of balls, and I think Krosky Merritt, if he's improved in that area, will catch a bunch of balls. I'll just say that the running back, White or Krosky Merritt, ends up being the 4th most targeted, in the 60 to 70 range for the season, something like that. But I think it's going to be really close between Terry, Diggs, and Chig. But I'll go in order: Terry, Diggs, Chigakonkwo, Rashad White. That's how the ball will be spread out in order of targets. And, you may not end up with a guy that catches 100 balls this year. I mean, you may not end up with a guy that catches 90 balls this year, clearly, if the targets are right in terms of what I'm talking about. But to have 3 guys in the 70 plus, maybe you get a 70, 75, and an 80 among your top 3, that would be exciting. That'd be really exciting if you ended up with something like that. And then a back that catches 50 balls. Yeah. Again, I'm counting on them running the football. Max, what's your spread it out, rankings look like?
I'm not sure how it's going to work out right now. I am kind of the opinion that I think Terry and Diggs are going to split probably around 50-50 on their target share. So I'm not sure what we'll call that.
Yeah, I don't need numbers from you guys. I just want the ranking. Who's going to get targeted the most? Who's going to get targeted the second most? Who's going to get targeted the third most?
But
I'm going Terry, Diggs, and Chig in that order. I mean, I think it could be any one of those 3 at 1, 2, or 3, because I think they're going to be targeted very similarly among all 3. But so you think Terry and Stefon Diggs are 1, 2 in some order?
Yeah, 1, 2 in some order. I think that we're going to be slinging the pill quite a bit. And then with how tight end centric I've heard that this offense is, I can't not put Chig up in the top 3. So my top 3 is the exact same as yours. So we'll see kind of how it works out. But yeah, Terry, Stefon, Chig.
Yeah, I mean, if you want an idea, like the Lions, all right? Now, look, Amon-Ra St. Brown gets targeted. He got targeted 172 times a few years ago. But if you go back to the 2024 Lions, Ben Johnson and that offense humming all year long, and if you think that that David Blau is going to do something similar in terms of targets that year, Amon-Ra had 141, Jamison Williams had 91, Sam Laporta had 83, and Gibbs had 63. That was their top four in terms of targets. Amon-Ra that year had 115 catches, 12 touchdowns. I don't think Washington has an Amon-Ra St. Brown out there. I don't think Terry and Diggs are so far away from that. But yeah, and maybe Chig ends up being every bit the pass-catching tight end that Laporta is. I think he's got a chance to be better than Laporta. But there's not a Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield, that's for sure. All right, let's go with DC, who's calling from Iowa. DC, go ahead.
Great day, Kevin. How are you?
How are you, DC?
Man, I'm excellent, brother. We know Terry. We know Jaden spreads the ball around, and Terry is our number one. So I'm going Terry, Diggs, and I'm going to look at Rashad White. I know that the offense is set up for a Okonkwo, but Rashad White is very vital on third downs and plays as well. So I'm going to go with him over Chig. And Stefon's aggressiveness with Terry, they're going to demand the ball because they're going to be open and they're going to be game changers.
Yeah. No, I like your thinking, and the way Jaden spread it around in the full season that he's played in the NFL in 2024. Terry got the most targets. Ertz got the second most. Terry was targeted 117 times. Ertz 91 times. By the way, Ertz's third down red zone ability, hopefully will be replaced by Okonkwo. Not the same size target and not the veteran experience necessarily. Chig is going to provide much more explosiveness and yards after catch than Ertz did. But if you go back to 2024, now part of this was because the next two in line didn't play that much because they were injured during the course of the year. But Olamide Zaccheaus was the third most targeted receiver, but he played 17 games. Noah Brown was close. He only played in 11 games. And Austin Eckler probably would have been the third most targeted receiver had he played 17 games because he was targeted 41 times in 12 games. Maybe Noah Brown would have been there, but gives you an idea of what Jaden was looking at that first year. Thank you, DC. Let's go to Kevin in Virginia. Kevin, go ahead.
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I don't disagree with their list. I'd probably put Rashad White third just because he's an out. Because who are the most consequential targets? And I would make the argument that Diami is a dark horse because he's our only really deep threat. I don't think Diggs is at a point where he's a deep threat. Will Diggs' presence open the field for Diami so that he can do some over-the-top long balls that make a difference in a game? If he has 40 or 50 catches that are 20-plus yards,
sure,
that could change games. And I also would argue that Chig is a consequential target because Ertz used to get that first down for us. We are 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. He had a way of getting that first down. Jaden would go to him. Will Chig develop into that target for Jaden as well? I think those two players are very important in making a difference in the games and winning those games.
Yeah, I mean, that's another way to look at it, but I like the way you looked at it, and that is where are the consequential catches and yards going to come from? I still think that the three players that I'm talking about and even number 4, even if they're not, average yards per reception, it's somewhere north of 13, 14 yards per, it's still going to be consequential. But in terms of Diami, yes. And remember, Diami did not have a great regular season. He kind of came on at the end of that regular season and then into the postseason. But I would just say that Terry still has deep threat capability. Until I see otherwise, he's still going to be a guy that you have to, you have to respect in terms of his ability to take the top off of a defense. I'm not saying it would be at the same level, if they had gone out and gotten Rashid Shaheed as an example. But he's still a deep threat and probably every bit the deep threat that Diami is. But thanks for the call, Kevin. Let's go to G. G, go ahead.
Yeah, that last caller, Kevin, man, was right on point. Because when you think of 3rd and 5, everybody think of Terry or Stefon Diggs getting the football, and we might do some other stuff in Miami for 70 yards, scoring 6.
Yeah.
I see a balanced breakfast, Kevin. Balanced
That'd be new for you.
No, like you said, 70, 60, 70 for this guy, 70 for this guy. Because Stefon Diggs sounded real coachable in that press conference.
He did. But that's,
No, but
people will say that he is in that first year usually.
No.
No.
Bob Malloy
I was just agreeing with you.
We had Bob Malloy on the air the other day.
Yesterday.
We're not asking Stefon Diggs to watch our kids. We're not asking him to cook our breakfast. We're asking him to produce something.
You've been smoking this morning, haven't you? You are really, really laid back. You're really delivering a very, very methodical call here. I like it. I like it.
No, because I see a balanced breakfast, Sheehan.
Yeah.
Like
what'd you have for breakfast?
Weed.
Yeah. Of course you did.
And coffee.
Yeah.
Little Tito's and coffee. But
a little Tito's and coffee on a Friday morning with weed. That's, what? You got good balance there.
Balanced breakfast.
Yeah.
Hey, Sheehan, but at the same time, Stefon Diggs has played with numerous quarterbacks.
Yeah.
We need to get our AC fixed. We need to get our insect repellent fixed. But at the same time, it showed that he's been different places and can adapt to different places. He played with
he's a
different
veteran.
quarterbacks. He played with
He's a veteran. He's seen it all.
No, but he's played with veteran quarterbacks. He's played with young quarterbacks.
Yep.
But at the same time, we have, undercover, one of the top offenses out there because you got Chig, who's finding himself.
What are you gonna have for lunch? What are you cooking up for lunch?
Scooby-Doo style sandwich.
Don't dog me like I'm incoherent.
You're not incoherent. You're actually entertaining, but I'm just asking you what you're having for lunch.
I'm having Kevin Sheehan, pause. Because the thing is, the tight end position has always been a security blanket for Jaden. We got Stefon Diggs and Terry McLaurin, and I agree with you. Terry McLaurin is still a deep ball threat. But Diami Brown, that's going to open the field up for Diami Brown. Diami Brown has been told to me for years about somebody that lived down North Carolina and watched him in high school.
Right.
Diami Brown came into his own with Jaden Daniels. Then we couldn't find the money to pay him. He went somewhere else and got the money. He had a good little year. But at the same time, it's going to open the whole football field up. And like you said, Rashad White, Bill, but we have a running quarterback also.
All right, I gotta get to a break. I'm coming over and doing a balanced breakfast with you one of these days. And let me just leave you with this: Eric Metcalf, O'Connell.
No, I'm mad I ain't saying him on air because I'm well versed in all this. I'm well versed in all this in the water, man.
Yeah. All right, I gotta go. G from the shop, everybody. Stay on hold. How will the ball be spread around offensively? Where do you see the targets? Who leads in being targeted? Who's second? Who's third? Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. How are the targets on offense? How will the ball be spread around by Jaden Daniels and David Blau? I got Terry being targeted the most, followed by Diggs, followed by Chig, followed by one of the two running backs. I'll just say Rashad White for right now. Anthony, go ahead.
So, Kevin, I got a quick question for you, a quick observation, answer the question, then pick a nit with you.
Okay.
All right. So, quick question. I know you and your boy used to partake back in the day. RE trouble or EU?
EU.
Okay.
But TF won.
Okay, I got you. Quick observation.
Yeah.
As much of a hoop head as you are, I'm surprised you don't give the W a chance.
What do you mean?
Yeah, he does.
I've talked more about the W than I've ever talked about it.
I'm talking about watching.
Well, I do when Caitlin Clark's playing. I watch. I'm not watching every game.
No, I'm not a connoisseur by any stretch, but I try to keep up with the Mystics.
The Mystics, you know what I had on my notes from yesterday's show transferred to my notes today. They had a big comeback the other night, down 20. They came back and won. I didn't mention it. You're right. I should have mentioned it. I was planning on mentioning it. All right. Okay. Now that we've cleared that out of the way, what's next?
The order is basically your order. If we take David Blau at his word, Terry's going to be the number one target. So throw in Diggs, then Chig, and I agree. Coming out of the backfield, it's got to be White. To me, that's his forte, catching the ball out of the backfield.
Right.
Now, as far as what was I going to say? God,
did you have a balanced breakfast this morning like G did? What's going on here today? What? By the way, the Mystics have won 5 games in a row, and if the season ended today, they'd be in the playoffs. And weren't they supposed? Well, I don't even know. I'm about to talk out of my backside.
The only issue that the Mystics have is they don't have any veteran leadership. It's all.
But am I right that they were not supposed to be a good team and they haven't been a good team for a while?
They were a team predicted to be on the rise. They're above schedule. Put it that way. They're above schedule. Okay, my nitpick.
What?
You seem to have a definitive declaration of what Terry is, and my argument is we really don't know what Terry is. We really don't know what Terry would have been.
You've made this pitch to me before, and if it's not you, it's somebody else. And I agree with you.
I haven't made it. I haven't made it.
What we saw from him, though, in 2024, playing with by far and away, right, the best quarterback he's ever played with, we saw a guy that was really good. But we didn't see a guy that you force feed 150 targets to, and he ends up with 110 or 115 catches in 1,400 yards. We still don't. That's the guy that our fans, many of our fans, not all of our fans, many of our fans have thought over the years that's what he would be with better quarterback play. I don't agree with that. I think what we've seen from him, what we saw from him in 2024, the 13 touchdowns, exceptional, the big-time catches, but 82 balls for just over 1,000 yards. I think that's what he is.
So my counter to that is we don't know because, one, he's played with C and D level quarterbacks.
Yes.
And two, there's never been a comparable complement on the opposite side of the field. So if anybody's getting doubled on our team, it's him.
Right.
So people have complained about him disappearing in some games. Well, when you got somebody over the top and below you, and there's nobody that's a threat on the other side, then that can tend to happen. So my contention is, could he have been, or could he be now that 150 target player? It's possible, but we just don't know because
I mean, I don't think he will. I don't think that's who he is. I mean, I'm just looking like Justin Jefferson last year with and he's not in Justin Jefferson's class,
No, I'm
but
not. Don't get me wrong.
141
Don't get me
targets
wrong.
with terrible quarterbacks last year.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not putting Terry in
Okay.
Justin Jefferson's
I know
or
you're
Jamar
not.
Chase's category.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, based on the
Malik Neighbors
presentation-
2 years ago. Come on, man. His rookie year. A rookie with Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito and Tim Boyle and Daniel Jones for half the season. All right. Targeted 170 times, and he had 109 catches for 1,204 yards as a rookie. And by the way, missed 2 games.
That's
so there are examples of some receivers at a level, a cut above, with not great quarterback play that still get fed the ball. And I just think that that's not who he is, but he is a lot of other things that are very, very good. All right, I got to roll, Anthony. Thanks. Those of you who I didn't get to, we'll come back to this before the end of the show. Ben Standig's going to join us from training camp next. We'll get to Ben here shortly. He is, I guess, working right now. But once he gets the message, we'll get him on. Because I want to talk to Ben about everything this week, including, by the way, the kicker battle, which he tweeted about after practice today. I want to know how Trey Amos looked. I want to know how Dorrance Armstrong looked. I want to know what Steph Diggs looked like. What was it like to be at that press conference? I thought he sounded super confident. I actually thought he really sounded super experienced, really, more than anything else. Like a guy who's just kind of been there, done that. This from Peter in Manassas. Peter writes, Diggs presser, intelligent, motivated, good communicator. What a breath of fresh air. The experienced leader we needed. Yeah, I mean, Terry's been the leader, and the experienced leader and the communicator, et cetera. And obviously the quarterback is a leader on this team as well. We'll get back to before the end of the hour, once we get Ben on, to your calls if you want to still weigh in on how the quarterback and the offensive coordinator will spread the ball around offensively. I did want to play some sound for you guys. This was TJ Houshmandzadeh. We've played a lot of sound from the former NFL wide receiver turned wide receiver coach, mentor, guru. He was one of Brandon Ayuk's coaches, personal coaches, and mentors. And we played a lot of the sound. TJ Houshmandzadeh and everybody in the Brandon Ayuk orbit pretty much turned their back to him and said you'd be nuts to sign him. Houshmandzadeh, I think the last time we played a soundbite from him, said, Adam Peters should be fired on the spot if he goes and signs Brandon Ayuk. But he feels a lot differently about Stefon Diggs signing here. Here's what TJ Houshmandzadeh said on his podcast.
We almost like GMs in here. Do you remember this about a few weeks ago? We talked about this, right?
You're right.
I said, I'm signing Stefon Diggs.
You're right.
Hey, the Commander's going to be a problem. And I know last week, right, I said the Cowboys going to win the division. If the Commanders' defense can return to year one, Jay Daniels, they're going to be a big problem. I like this signing because you get a proven guy. You get one-on-one with Stefon Diggs, he's going to win.
Right.
And I'm not concerned with the off-the-field problem. I'm not concerned with none of that. I love this move. I love this signing. And this all, but I hope BA really ain't buy no house in the DC area.
Buying homes in this area, depending on where you're buying them, has paid off in recent years. But who knows if he actually spent $10 million on a house near Ashburn? I don't know. Diggs. By the way, did he say if the defense returns to what it was during Jaden's rookie year? Because the defense wasn't very good that year.
It was average.
Yeah, no, it was less than average. It was not a very good defense at all. Man, I'll tell you what, this season will be determined here on health, 1, 2, defensive improvement, 3, the defensive improvement including takeaways, a significant increase in takeaways. They were 26th in the league in takeaways in 2024. They were 31st in the league last year in takeaways. This was Dan Quinn's calling card in Dallas. They led the league in takeaways in 2 of the 3 years he was the defensive coordinator in Dallas. You give Jaden Daniels, and he's playing all 17 games, and the team is healthy. You give them more opportunities than they've gotten in the first 2 seasons, or certainly even in the first season. This team's going to be a good football team. I don't know how it wouldn't be. But again, health, defensive improvement, which includes significant increase in takeaways from where they have been. Let me know when Ben is ready, and we will get him on, because in addition to talking football, I do want to talk some Wizards, because yesterday was the first day that the Wizards could potentially offer Anthony Davis an extension. John Gruden, who somebody mentioned to me is back working in television, but it may be as a preseason analyst. Are you familiar with that? I think he might be doing.
I'm not familiar with this development from.
He's
Gruden.
doing
I know
the
he's
YouTube stuff.
Yeah, he's been
for
working
33rd team, right?
No, for Barstool Sports.
For Barstool, I'm sorry. Jay's doing 33rd team stuff.
Yes,
and John is doing Barstool stuff. Well, he did a whole thing on Jaden Daniels and what he believes will be a redemption season. Here's what he said.
Let's talk about Jaden Daniels. Everybody knows about his rookie season, 3,600 yards. He set a rookie record with 890 yards rushing, rookie record for 69% complete. Last year, he got hurt. He hurt his hamstring. He hurt his elbow. He hurt his knee. He got beat up. I get the feeling he had a real bad taste in his mouth. You think Jaden Daniels likes sitting on the sidelines down there watching his team get their butt kicked? No. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. I think he's going to come out firing, man, in 2026. He makes everybody better. His leadership, his energy, his style of play, man. He's accurate short. He's accurate deep. He can just make shit happen when there's nothing there. He scrambles a lot. 13% of his drop back passes as a rookie, he took off and ran. Last year, he took off and ran 15% of the time. I hope he starts transitioning into a Steve Young kind of player. Win in the pocket. Win in the pocket. Win in the what, Jake? Pocket. And then if there's nothing there, we resort to scrambling. But we got to take, I think, the ball out of his hands as a runner a little bit, and we got to start getting him to really make plays in the pocket.
John Gruden on Jaden Daniels. You know, the way he slipped Steve Young in there, there are a lot of, comparable aspects of both of their games. And if there's somebody to kind of look up to and emulate in terms of a style of play, Steve Young would be it. Now, Steve Young was shorter in the pocket than Jaden Daniels is. I think one of the things we've noticed about Jaden Daniels as a pro, he's a solid 6'3", 6'3 and a half. He's a taller quarterback in the pocket. Even with a slender build, he doesn't have any issues seeing over the defense. The height is not his issue. Steve Young's height wasn't an issue necessarily for him, but when I think about Steve Young and the idea that John Gruden just sort of comped or at least suggested that the style of play should be similar, that's the thing that just, to me, immediately stands out as a little bit different. Steve Young was a shorter quarterback in the pocket. He wasn't sub 6 feet. I'm going to guess that he was 6'1", something like that, right around there. Jaden's 6'3 plus. What's Jaden's exact height? Why am I forgetting that? Is he listed at 6'4" or not? He's listed at 6'4". Steve Young, 6'1 and a half as a quarterback. So that's one big difference. But man, stylistically, now back then, Steve Young, if dual threat quarterbacking existed when he played in the 90s in the NFL as a starter, because he backed up Montana for 4 or 5 years in San Francisco, Steve Young would have been an absolute lethal dual threat quarterback with zone read, with RPOs, all of that. It would have been really interesting to watch him in that realm. When he first came out, he was more of a scrambler rather than a patient pocket passer, but he developed into one of the great pocket passers and one of the most feared scramblers in NFL history. I actually have always felt that Steve Young is a little bit underrated on the list of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Obviously, a first ballot, I believe he was first ballot Hall of Famer, but never, maybe because he played in the shadow of Joe Montana, never sort of listed in those in that rarefied air, and maybe he doesn't deserve to be, but he wasn't that far from it. But yes, let's get an offense. Let's get receivers that get open. Let's get a running game. Let's get a quarterback who's healthy and upright for more than 4 games, start to finish. And let's watch him develop into somebody who chooses to run a lot later and a lot less often, as what happened with Steve Young. All right, we've got Ben with us. Ben's joining us from Ashburn. I believe he's still there. We played the Stefon Diggs press conference. You were there. Other than the bees or bugs that were flying around and the lack of air conditioning, I thought he really sounded like a true grizzled veteran player joining a team where there's, something expected of him. I thought it was impressive. What did it seem like live, being there?
Yes, and thanks for that, Kev. My phone overheated, hence the delay.
No worries.
He sounded like a guy who's like, wherever I'm going to go, you're getting a hell of a player. And a guy, I've been around the block. I know what I'm doing. I came into camp shape. I'm ready to roll, and I'm gonna roll with the punches. Like he wasn't shy about his answers. Nothing threw him. Like you said, he was talking about even he couldn't hear the questions, which is a completely accurate point. I was in the back today of the room, and you can't hear anything. The system's terrible. So I like that he brought it up. And then even stuff with the hometown. We asked 17 different questions. What's it like to be home, which is a whole other story. But he kept saying, "Hey, look, it's a great feeling. When I used to play here, with a visiting team, I always played with a chip on my shoulder. That chip got exponentially larger when I came here because I always felt I had something to prove. And now that I'm here, that chip's going to be there. So, yeah, as far as press conferences go, I thought he was, pretty fun and pretty, direct. You ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer. I'm not just going to play around with it. And that's, obviously can be at least a bit of a fun, can be maybe a little live wire, but can be fun as well.
Yeah, refreshing, but confident, for sure.
Yeah.
By the way, just as an aside, because you alluded to it, I don't have a problem with a player and the presentation being, at least including the fact that the player's coming home. But it just reminds me of the dark days where we had an owner that literally, thought that signing a hometown player was like a big deal. Nobody from any of their Super Bowl winning teams was from here. No one cares. Nobody actually cares about that. They care about getting the best players. It doesn't matter where they're from, as long as they lead to winning. But I'm not criticizing them for making it a part of the presentation early on. But that's all we need to hear. Everybody knows Stefon Diggs grew up in the area, played at good counsel. Now it's about what he does as a player, no matter where he's from this point forward. So it sounds like the way you mentioned it, it sounds like that's something that you kind of feel too. Maybe I misread.
No, 1,000,000%. Look, to your point, the most popular and the best athlete in this town for the last 50 years is from freaking Russia. If you win, that's all that matters. Or, you play well, that's it. The rest of it, sure, it's a fun wrinkle, but it's hardly, we even just had it more recently. Chase Young was from here, it is what it is. But
Snyder with Young. Oh my God. The whole thing was just, I remember just saying, who cares? We know he went to DeMatha. Okay, fine. Now, is he going to turn into a great player or not? Because as you said, the greatest hockey player in the history of this town, and probably on the Mount Rushmore of team sport athletes, Russia, the most beloved of all time in this town from, the middle of Kansas. So nobody cares as long as they're great and the teams that they play for win. All right. I have not talked to you since Monday, I guess. So tell me your reaction to the signing of Diggs.
Yeah, look, obviously he is, his career, he's been a tremendously productive player, 4-time Pro Bowler, 7 times 1,000-yard seasons. He basically has had nothing but 1,000-yard seasons since 2018, except for 2024 when he tore his ACL during the year. Like we were saying a minute ago, he's a pro's pro when it comes to the receiver position. He is going to bring us a competitive edge without question to this offense. And, it raises the ceiling for what it is. Now, do I think they had to do something? I think if people are inferring that this was a sign of the front office and the coaching staff not believing in the current group. I don't believe that. I wrote the other day that, to me, this is the latest move that shows that Adam Peters has learned lessons from the past. Last year, it was blatantly obvious that the receiver room did not have enough, especially when Terry McLaurin's holding out and Noah Brown was hurt in minicamp, and they didn't do anything about it. This year, the room is better. These guys have looked good in camp, and then they still said, no, we have an opportunity. We're still going to do what we can do to get better. So, how it all play out, we'll see. Father Time eventually takes everybody down, and Diggs is, slowing down a bit. I would bet he's going to be as much in the slot as in the outside, but we'll see because of that. But again, a lot of the stats, I think you had Warren Sharp on the other day. I mean, a lot of the stats that he's posted show how this really productive and efficient Diggs was last year. Doesn't drop the ball. He's a playmaker. It's what he's been his whole career. And if he's able to do that here, then obviously, he's easily the best receiver that Terry McLaurin's had since he's come in the league, best tag team partner, right? So it just raises the floor, raises the ceiling. And when you look at, we talked about, does the offense have enough playmaking? And now you have McLaurin, Diggs, Okonkwo, who should be a yards after the catch beast. Bill Krosky-Merritt continues to my opinion, to show he's improved as a pass catcher, get him in space and look out. And, there's the other guys to complement that. So they've done a good job, I think, of getting pieces around Jaden Daniels. And that's the whole, obviously, the straw that stirs the drink. And he's looked better and better as camp's gone on. So I think you got to be pretty excited about what this could be. And hopefully, like I said, Diggs looked good to me. I mean, he didn't do a ton today with the team, but he did do a few things. They did one-on-one drills. He did one-on-one drill and just completely dusted the cornerback. The ball was overthrown, but just ran by the guy. It wasn't one of their main players, but just ran by him. I mean, he's ready to go once he learns the playbook. So, yeah, it's exciting for sure.
Ben Standig joining us, our team insider at Ben Standig on X. Ben Standig has his Substack called Last Man Standig. I would definitely recommend subscribing to it. So I'm going to agree with you on one front, the Adam Peters, doing more this year than he did last year. I'll push back a little bit on the idea that they didn't necessarily have to do it. And the only reason I would say that is going into this upcoming season, you only had one true known entity in your pass catching group, and it's Terry McLaurin. You've got you had a bunch of maybes. Burks is a maybe. Van Jefferson hasn't caught, more than 50 balls in a season. Obviously, Jalen Lane and Antonio Williams and Luke McCaffrey, they're all maybes. And with the way the season is starting and the importance of the season in general, I think they just needed to feel like we got somebody that's going to take the field on September 13th in Philadelphia that isn't a maybe alongside Terry. Because if they didn't sign Diggs, it's all about which one of these guys is going to emerge into something that they can actually count on, rather than just being theoretical, rather than just having, traits. Diggs has done it. I think they needed it.
Yeah, I mean, that's everything you just said is there's no pushback to that. That's why you go out and get one guy rather than having to figure out how to make it work with 3 and 4 guys. But I'm just saying, as somebody who last year was screaming, the receiver room is not nearly good enough. I'm just saying, my view, it's looking better. I've been pushing back on the idea that this was definitely a better group than the 2024 group. I probably would say I think it is now. If they keep 6, we'll see how many they keep. But if they keep 6 of the 8 guys who were like sort of the vets or Antonio Williams, I legitimately could not tell you who I would cut. I think they've all had their moments. And you're right. I mean, it's the difference between having one guy versus having, like I said, David Blau having to kind of figure out, when do I want to use these different guys? So from that point, yes, I'm just saying that in totality, this group was not deficient in the way it was a year ago. And, preseason, training camp practices, fool's gold if you buy into what we're seeing there as definitive of anything. Let's be clear on that. But I'm just saying, I like what they've done. I like the group, the different skills, and I think they'll be good compliments to McLaurin and Diggs. So sure, I get it. And that's the thing. He's sitting right there. Like I said, a year ago when they had much less, I don't know what Adam Peters could have done, but he didn't do it. And the pre-camp press conference, when he's asked about the room, he's like, hey, we like these guys, but if we see something we like, we're not afraid to do it. And I thought that use of afraid was important because I'm not saying he was afraid last year, but they didn't do anything. And this year, even though, like I said, I think they had enough pieces to make it work, they said, no, we're going to push it, and we're going to go get this guy because of all the reasons you just said as to why the one guy would be better than three guys.
Yeah, and I'm also just wondering, and you would have a much better feel for this, obviously, but do you think that at this point, and we're only 9 days into camp, do you in 7 days, I guess, since the news broke that they were signing Diggs, do you think that while they like the players, and again, they're maybes, that maybe Antonio Williams just is not necessarily a guy that they feel comfortable with from the jump? And I point to him specifically, and maybe even Luke, I think you may have asked this question actually about, the development of some of the other guys with Diggs out there. But is it possible that if they saw something like Jay Gruden saw in Terry McLaurin in 2019, that they maybe wouldn't have made this move? And because they did, they haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, if we're isolating it to the one guy, I do think that's a fair point. You're right. When Terry McLaurin showed up in 2019, it was like, whoa, this guy is clearly the best receiver in the room already. I don't know that I can make that claim about Antonio Williams. I mean, other than, of the non-McLaurins. I mean, he looks shifty. I understand the reasons as to why they wanted to get him, quick, shifty, route runners, all that. But yeah, it's not like he's had a ton of big plays in camp or has been a big target necessarily. I feel like some of the other guys, Van Jefferson, McCaffrey, Treylon Burks, Jalen Lane, they've all had more moments. So yeah, I think it could very well be that because he's the one guy, everybody else you at least have some feel for in the pros. He was the one guy who was new, and he hasn't come out and just been on fire, and therefore maybe that's where like, okay, we don't necessarily have we don't have one guy that, like you were saying before, could maybe be the obvious number two with Terry. We have a group, and yeah, I think it's fair to say that. Again, it's not to say he's played poorly or this is a mistake or anything like that. It is just to say that as a rookie, how much they want to lean on him at the moment doesn't look like it's probably going to be like a huge amount today. Maybe that changes by week 1 or week 8. We'll see. But yeah, I think that's a fair thought for sure.
How do you see the ball getting spread out? I gave it some thought and we took calls on it. But right now, fast forward to the end of the season, everybody was healthy on offense. Who got targeted the most? Who got targeted the second most? Who got targeted the third most?
It's a great question, and
it's not a great question. It's an August 7th question after they acquired Stefon Diggs.
Fair enough. I mean, I guess I say it's great because I'm trying to figure out, as I said a minute ago, who's going to make the team, and I don't, in terms of the receivers. And I think that goes a long way towards answering this question. Like, if they think Stefon, like Dan Quinn specifically, when I asked him about going up against Diggs in previous spots, he mentioned him coming out of the slot and how dangerous he is. Okay. So when I then brought that up again, he's like, well, he'll play everywhere. But
but he had said slot multiple times already, inside and slot.
Right. And I talking to people around the league, their general thought was, hey, he's competitive, all that stuff, but he probably is going to be best using the slot at this point. Okay. So if that's the case and you're just saying 3 receiver sets, then what does that mean? Is he in the slot and Treylon Burks is the most obvious sort of other outside receiver? Or is that not how they go? Do they move, Chigakonko outside? And, it's hard for me to sit here and tell you who I think is legitimately the third receiver. I really don't know. I think it's that's why I do think it's a good question. Like, you could tell me it's Treylon Burks, and you could tell me by the end of camp, Treylon Burks might be on the wrong side of the bubble. Not because
this isn't receivers. This is just overall pass catchers.
Me, well, in that case, Shig, would probably be
of course, and probably one of the 2 backs.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, okay. If we're looking at the room in totality, yeah, I would agree with that. I will say this in terms of the overall receivers, the tight end room. Obviously, John Bates hasn't been playing, and it's always, again, you got to take it all with a grain of salt in camp. But Colton Yankoff, I would say, has played more plays in camp than any receiver at any of the positions. Now, it's not to say that he's going to be jump up ahead of Chig or Bates or anything along those lines, but, you know, he probably won't play enough at all to be in that conversation. But I just think like he looks like a guy that can make plays. Ben Sinnott, maybe been a little quieter the last few days, but, you know, I think there's still some more promise there, a better fit for this system. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a diverse group. Now, look, when it comes to when we get to week 5 and the passing game isn't working and we're all going, wow, they should have done more. Well, we'll see. But right now, it feels like they have a lot of ways to go. Yeah, the two obvious receivers, Chig, one of the running backs, that's probably a reasonable way to look at this for sure.
Yeah, you know, I think it's really hard as well to figure out which player got hurt the most by the Stefon Diggs signing. I mean, I just threw something out yesterday, and that is it possible that a wide receiver needy team like the 49ers would give up a day 3 pick for Luke McCaffrey to join his brother or something like that? But I think for now, in sort of reading through a bunch of league wide receiver conversations, there is a belief that 2 or 3 legitimate guys are going to get released. And New England's the place where everybody's looking. You know, whether it's Douglas or Booty, they can't keep all of them in New England right now after adding, obviously, A.J. Brown via trade and Romeo Doubs in free agency. But, yeah, it's kind of hard. I mean, I'll go ahead. Just take a wild guess as to who Stefon Diggs hurt the most in terms of making the roster or being on the roster.
I mean, I think Van Jefferson to me is probably the one. If you ignore who they are and everything else, Van Jefferson's had as good of a camp as a receiver as anybody out there, other than maybe Terry McLaurin. But the role that he would fit in this sort of, you know, wide receiver 2 by committee is he's the sure hand guy. He's the pro's pro. Stefon Diggs covers a lot of that ground himself. So,
but Jefferson's an outside receiver.
Yeah, sure. But like I said, I mean, if they're only going to use 2 receivers a lot of the time because of 12 personnel, then
fair.
You know, when you want the hand guy, then it's probably just going to go to Diggs. So I would say probably him. And I think the De'Ami Brown / Treylon Burks part, like I'm going to assume, barring a trade, that they keep the 3 guys they've drafted. So that would mean one spot. If they keep 6 receivers, maybe they'll keep 7, but potentially one spot for De'Ami Brown, Treylon Burks, and Van Jefferson. And De'Ami Brown helps on special teams. Dan Quinn loves his fight out there, but Treylon Burks has the most upside of the other, you know, sort of outside guys. So those 3 guys probably, I would say in general, probably hurt the most, unless somehow they do move one of the guys they've drafted.
All right. How did the guys coming off the injured list look? Trey Amos and Dorrance Armstrong specifically.
Yeah, Armstrong didn't participate in 11s or anything like that quite yet. He's, you know, it sounds like he's doing well. Obviously, they activate him, but not quite yet. Trey Amos was out there. I thought he looked pretty spry, you know, all things considered. You know, he tried asking him about the injury and, you know, what was there any reason for the delay, or it felt like it was a delay, and he, you know, just kind of moved past that, didn't say too much, but he looked fine out there. You know, I would imagine sooner than later he'll be the clear, obvious starter, and then it's just a question of, is the other outside starter, is that Rasul Douglas, is it Mikey Sanders still? And then Tress, they didn't punt the ball today, or at least not on maybe he was punting on the side field. I just didn't see it, but he was out there holding, which is obviously another part of his deal. And, you know, we're watching the kicking competition. But, you know, I would imagine Tress's issue was a pec injury, not a leg injury. So I assume he's good to go.
All right. Well, tell everybody about the kicking competition, because you tweeted something out rather enthusiastically about the kicking competition today.
Hey, well, you know, it's the one tangible thing we can all look at and say, okay, here's what the scoreboard is. Yeah, Drew Stevens, you know, they were, you know, fairly even the first few times where they would kick. The last 2 times that the kickers have been out there, Drew Stevens has gotten the better of it for sure. Today he was 8 for 8. Two of the kicks were in sort of like they would run a play, the offense, and the kicking team would run on the field. Then the other 6 were what they've been doing all camp, like start at like the 28 or the 33 and then just keep moving back 5 yards. He was 8 for 8 on his kicks. Two of them were like, one was like 53 and one was like 56. He just has that big leg. We've talked about that all along. It looks pretty smooth out there. Jake Moody doesn't have as big of a leg. It's fallen off a little bit. Again, we'll see what happens in the real game and then maybe, or preseason, and maybe the coaches are seeing something more than just a ball going through the uprights. But he has missed 5 kicks in camp, and they've all come in the last 2 sessions. And the 2 kicks he missed today were both the long ones. And, obviously that's been a bugaboo for this team, is like not just finding a kicker that's accurate, but one that can be a weapon beyond 50. And, in this era, that's becoming pretty commonplace. And Stevens looks like he is that kind of a guy. So, we'll see what happens when they get to the preseason games. He looks pretty confident. Obviously, he kicked at a big-time program and often at a place that didn't always have a great offense and had to be, he was the offense at times. So, he looks to me, if you made me say today, I would probably guess he's the answer. But as we know, there's more to it. There's kickoffs. There's other factors. But he has looked pretty good for sure the last few days.
All right, last one. I know you got to run, but Wizards, Ben also covers the Wizards as part of his Substack. Anthony Davis became eligible last night at 6 p.m. for a contract extension. What do we know at this point? What's your guess in terms of what happens here between now and the beginning of the season?
Yeah, I appreciate the mention of the Wizards. I wrote the other day about this, that first of all, I can't, sometimes it's all easy to say, well, give him this kind of a deal, this year's for this amount of money, and that can make sense for both sides. It's hard for me to see how they're going to thread this needle exactly, considering Davis is making well over 50 this year. He's got a player option for over 60 million next year. The Wizards aren't going to want to give him an extension that touches those numbers. I mean, at 33 now, he hasn't played much, as we know, the last few years because of injuries. So that would be crazy for them based on where they are as a program or a team to pay that guy that kind of money. But on the flip side, is he going to be willing to say, okay, I'll extend, but for a lesser number? So we'll see what they do on that. But to that end, I mean, my sense was that they were just going to wait and see, and not like the date was notable, but it's not. It's no deadline. It doesn't mean that much right now that they're going to wait and see what happens moving forward. I mean, I think for both sides, it makes a lot of sense to see what Anthony Davis looks like, say the first, half of the year, because either they could say, wow, he looked really good. He's buying in. Let's do this. We're playing well. Or, hey, other teams, look how good Anthony Davis is. You want him. You need him. If you're going to go for a title, you want to deal with Victor Wembanyama. Here's a guy. So I think it makes sense for both sides to wait. And to me, that's kind of the way it looks like it's going to go here.
Thanks. Go ahead, Run. Appreciate you making time for us. Talk to you later.
Oh, Kevin, always appreciate it, man. Thanks.
Ben Standig, everybody. So last night's Hall of Fame game will include Hall of Fame inductions this weekend. Who are the active players that are absolute locks for the NFL Hall of Fame? I created a list last night when I was watching the game, and I want to know if I missed anybody. We'll do it next. So the NFL Hall of Fame game was played last night. Really exciting game for a preseason game. The second highest scoring game of all time. The Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2026. Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, Luke Kuechly, Adam Vinatieri, and Roger Craig. That is your class. And I had the game on last night, and I think it may have been Collinsworth said, threw something out, or maybe it was during the halftime or something. Somebody threw out, who are the next group of Hall of Famers? And I just thought, who right now is an absolute lock if their career ended today? And so I put together a list, but during the break, Max made me aware of something, and I'm kind of upset that you did because I love Bill Barnwell and I respect him so much. And he literally put out yesterday, and I did not see it, a future Hall of Famers list from all 32 teams where he had an already in, on the cusp, keep it up, and just missing out. By the way, our team does not have anybody that's in, obviously. And he lists Jaden Daniels and Laramie Tunsil as work to do. And missing the cut, he's got Stefon Diggs and Terry McLaurin. But I put together this list, and I just went through the Barnwell list, and I had three players that he had that I did not have. But here was the list that and again, it's not about whether or not you think like Micah Parsons will eventually become a Hall of Famer. It's if the player's career ended today, would they be in the Hall of Fame? This is the list that I put together. Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Those four quarterbacks, I think, if they never played another down, they're going to the Hall of Fame. Matt Stafford, I put down. I think Matt Stafford's done now enough to be in the Hall of Fame. Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, they're in. They don't have to play another NFL down. They are in the Hall of Fame. Derrick Henry is in the Hall of Fame at this point if he never plays another down. Receiver-wise, I have Tyreek Hill, I think is a Hall of Famer, and he may never play another down. I think Devontae Adams is definitely at this point a Hall of Famer. Now, I did not have, and Barnwell did, I had Mike Evans as borderline Hall of Famer. He's got him in. Offensive lineman, I had Trent Williams is in. He doesn't need to play another down. Trent Williams is going to the Hall of Fame. Tight ends, Travis Kelce is in. And then who else did I have? Chris Jones is in. Doesn't need to play another down. And I think Bobby Wagner is in. I think he is a Hall of Famer. And he may not play again. He hasn't signed with anybody, right? So I then looked at the Barnwell list, and I was missing three players from my list. Christian McCaffrey. Has Christian McCaffrey done enough to be an absolute lock Hall of Famer if he never plays another down? I mean, maybe, just so you know, he's missed a lot of football over the years. A lot of football. 3 AP first team selections during his career, and he's been to the Pro Bowl 4 times. Now, the seasons that he's not in the Pro Bowl are a lot of those injury seasons, but they count. So I had Christian McCaffrey as not necessarily a lock, and I didn't have Lane Johnson as a lock. The one that I forgot, and I think he is a Hall of Famer, is Khalil Mack. I don't know how I missed that one. But Khalil Mack's going to be a Hall of Famer. And Lane Johnson's probably going to be a Hall of Famer. But when you look up Lane Johnson, it's like, really, is the resume that different from Jake's? I mean, it is slightly better in terms of Pro Bowls and AP first teams. But, and look, he's played on, a couple of it's a very good team, but so did Jake. Max asked me during the break, don't you have to have a Super Bowl? No, you don't have to have a Super Bowl. You don't even need to go to the Super Bowl to be a Hall of Fame player. But that was the list. I don't think we're missing any. especially since I was able to go and read Barnwell's list during the break. I mean, I'm just looking through like on the cusp, like Cam Jordan. I considered Cam Jordan. He's got a case, and he's at this point he's like 38 years old, and he's played in one spot in New Orleans throughout his career, and he's been an excellent player. But he's never, I don't think, Cam Jordan has ever been like one of the 2 or 3 best at his position at any given time. I don't think that that's Cam Jordan's career. How many? I looked this up last night, but I'm just forgetting. Cameron Jordan, 8 Pro Bowls, just 1 first team AP, selection, just 1. I don't think he's a lock to be in the Hall of Fame. Anyway. All right. The Nats got some troubling news on a player that they traded for recently. We'll finish up with that when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. Pro Football Reference does this thing called the Pro Football Hall of Fame Monitor, where they've got like the average sort of number for a Hall of Famer. And then you can see where players who are actively playing, where they rank according to the average, where they are based on the average. Now, I will tell you that there are many Hall of Famers that come in below the average Hall of Fame number, hence the average of all of the players in the Hall of Fame. But in that Hall of Fame monitor number for tackles, just to emphasize the point that I made in the last segment about Lane Johnson, I said Lane Johnson's, resume doesn't seem that much different than Jacoby's, and Jacoby's not in, so I can't say that Lane Johnson's a lock to make it. So Jacoby actually, per the Hall of Fame monitor, is ranked higher than Lane Johnson. So Jacoby's got 2 AP first team selections, 4 Pro Bowls. Lane Johnson, 2 AP first team All Pro selections and 6 Pro Bowls. They both, the championship number, Lane Johnson's got 2. Of course, Joe Jacoby has 3. At this point, they've basically had the same length of career. Actually, Lane Johnson has started more games now than Jake did in his career. I had Jimbo Covert on the show over this earlier in the spring, and we talked a lot about the Bears-Redskins battles during the 80s, and even talked about Jacoby. And I told him what I've said about him, which is if he's in the Hall of Fame, Jacoby should be in the Hall of Fame. Jacoby's resume is better than Jimbo Covert's, period. It just is. Played a lot more, won more Super Bowls, same number of AP first teams, more Pro Bowls. Jacoby is definitely, when you look at that tackle list, something is missing. I mean, there are guys below him on the Hall of Fame monitor that are in. So remember when Washington traded Curtis Meade for a pitcher in Boston, Connolly Early, who was coming in injured to begin with, but the thought was he might be a guy that they can count on towards the end of this month, especially if they were in a playoff chase, which really it doesn't seem like they are in anymore. They're only 5.5 out, even though they've lost now, 8 of their last 9. They lost to the Phillies last night, 7-3. But I saw this tweet from Mark Zuckerman about Connolly Early. He tweeted out yesterday, Connolly Early experienced forearm tightness in between innings of his live BP session in West Palm Beach this week. So the Nats are going to be ultra cautious and wait to schedule his next outing. Blake Butera did say, from what I've been told, it's not super concerning. Closed quote. Man, whenever you hear forearm tightness, isn't that one of the triggers for Tommy John at some point down the road? Man, the last week and a half really was a buzzkill in terms of the Nats season. The 4 losses in Atlanta, the selling at the deadline, James Woods banged up. One of the players they acquired might be, injured to the point where we don't see him until next year. And what's the point? I mean, don't bring Connolly Early back if there's any risk. The Nats are not going anywhere at this point. Their season is completely turned around in a week and a half. I mean, literally in a week and a half, it's gone from, oh my God, this could be one of the most stunning seasons we've seen in terms of what the expectations were before the season started, to, I mean, will they even win at this point? Will they even win 70 games, 75 games? I don't know. 70 and 92, 22 games under 500 is not going to happen. But could it be 75? Maybe no more than that. All right, done for the day. Thanks to all of you who called. Thanks to Max and Brian, and to Ben Standing for jumping on the show. Have a great weekend. Chris is up next.